every Friday from 3:05 to 4 on 14 WILI and 95.3 FM. It's the Friday Sports Scene with Keith and Koivisto. Talking local sports every Friday, getting you ready for the weekend and what lies ahead. High school sports, UConn, ECSU, and more. The Friday Sports Scene with Keith and Koivisto is brought to you by your local Dunkin' stores. Route 32 South Windham, 1015 Main Street, Willimantic, 1575 West Main Street, and 407 Jackson Street. The Friday Sports Scene. Now, here's Keith C. Rice and Jan Koivisto.
Sister, darling.
And, of course, we're joined by Nick Erlinson, too. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. That's what Red Sox fans are saying now.
And Celtics fans.
And Celtics fans, yes. Oh, my goodness. Happy May 1st. And it's, we were spoiled for so many years as Boston sports fans. But, got to lose some, too, as we all know. But here we go. The May 1st edition of the Dunkin' Friday Sports Scene on 14 WILI, Willimantic, and 95.3 FM. And, of course, the WILI Radio YouTube channel. Keith C. Rice, the coach, Jan Koivisto, Nick Erlinson here. We got intern Anthony, J. Matt Rupar, ready to bring you local sports talk for the next hour. And we've got a beautiful, gorgeous Friday for this first day of May. And I wish we could say the same about some of our local professional teams. Boy, Sunday night, if you're a Celtics fan, you felt pretty darn good. And as we were talking about before the mics and cameras went on, gentlemen, I feel like you're looking at two different teams, what you saw on Tuesday and Thursday night as compared to Sunday night.
Well, Sunday was, a 13-point lead, I think. And since then, they've been outscored by about 35, 40. Yeah. And it's just been, it's been 180. I'm not sure exactly why. I think D. White has been bad. I think Kate has been bad. Pritchett, one really good game. I feel like, Tatum and Brown haven't been great, but I feel like they're kind of holding their own, but just not enough other guys.
Yeah, last night the threes killed them. 12 out of 41. Yeah.
Terrible.
They had 9 turnovers in the first half.
They're like two different teams. If they hit the three, they're unbelievable. If they don't, they look like some kind of average team that should be, they're like the 12th best team in the Eastern Conference. And I'm not even joking. And I love Tatum and Brown. And the Jays, they lead the way. Pritchard. But when this team is clicking on all cylinders, they're scary. But, to echo what Jan said, Derek White has been an absolute no-show. Peyton Pritchard looked absolutely lost last night. Now, I was in a bar, so I couldn't watch too much of it. I didn't want to bother watching the highlights because by the time I got home, it was still a 15-point Philadelphia lead. I'm like, what is going on here? And I know Embiid came back, and we can get into this a little too, how Embiid, Embiid or no Embiid, the Celtics have owned the Sixers for years in the postseason. Okay, the Sixers win a few games in the regular season against them. But the Embiid returning has helped. He almost had a triple-double last night. But still, I should put my foot in my mouth when it was 3-1. It shouldn't even be a series. Now we're going to a Game 7 tomorrow night.
Well, they kind of look like the team I think a lot of people thought they were going to be, right? Before the season, people were saying 7 seed or even miss the playoffs. You and I both thought better. Nick wasn't here then, I don't think. But you and I both thought top 4 type of seed.
Right.
And maybe these guys are what they are. Kata especially. Kata had such a good year.
He did. He really did.
Maybe this is who he is, though. Maybe that's not really
maybe
his
he's
fault.
Intimidated going up against Embiid.
Or he's just not as good as we thought, right? And their backups, like Luka Gaza, has barely played in the NBA, and he's seeing serious playoff minutes. I don't know. This might just be who they are. I think they're going to win Game 7.
I think so, too, because I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked if they lose a Game 7 at home. And I'll get to, we're talking about off the air, but one thing that concerns me, I don't know if you guys have heard, Tatum's calf. I didn't see it, but I heard he left the third quarter, didn't return on the fourth. You think he's going to play, but it was a calf injury last night? Does anybody hear anything?
No, I didn't know that. I thought the guys were in because they were waving the white flag.
Well, I thought that too, but I saw an X when I got home that, he hurt his calf and he had to leave the game. So I can't see why he would. He actually mentioned he is going to play because at the post-game presser, he's like, it's kind of bum we're going to Game 7, but I'm blessed to be playing in a game which I pretty much sat out many of these games all year. So he is going to play, it sounds like. And I will say this, the last time the Sixers knocked the Celtics out of the playoffs, because even if we're not in NBA season, I always collected Sports Illustrated covers. That was like my childhood hobby. And that 1982 cover, take that, Boston, with Dr. J, with a slam dunk at the Garden in the late minutes. I still think of it as a 10-year-old going, and you brought this up, Jan. Celtics were down 3-1 in 81, came back and won the whole thing.
Yeah.
They were down 3-1 in 82. Game 7 in the Garden, and the Sixers behind Dr. J won that one.
Yeah, I was in high school, and I got to tell you, I think I like those Celtics Sixers as my childhood memories. Those series and those games more than the Laker games,
Absolutely.
even though they were great too.
Jay and Bird with the famous choke.
I was at that game. It was a preseason game.
You were at that game. That's right.
It was a preseason game. I went with a buddy. We visited his sister at Northeastern, and we're like, "Hey, Celtics Sixers Sunday night." And first of all, it was a preseason game.
Right.
They all played the whole game, and they were so competitive they got in a fight. Can you imagine that happening? Now they don't even play a quarter just to get their feet wet.
They barely play the regular season, too.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a great point. Bird and Irving playing in a preseason game and then fighting. You would never see that in 2026.
Unbelievable.
My God. Wow, you were at that game. It's amazing. But yeah, they've had a lot. I agree. As a kid, and I know, Nick, you're a little younger than us. But
I was 1 year old when that happened.
all right. No. So, but yeah, those Celtics Sixers games, we could go, Jan and I could run down the rosters.
Yeah.
Andrew Toney,
Yeah.
Mark Ivoroni for the Sixers.
Oh, yeah.
Moses Malone.
Bobby Jones was a defensive wizard. Maurice Cheeks.
We're naming the Sixers,
Yeah.
and we obviously know this. Celtics, Robert Parrish, Chris Ford, Kevin McHale, Larry Bird, obviously. But
Tiny at the beginning. Tiny Archibald through
right?
81, maybe 82.
God, those are the days. And then, of course, by the way, not to really digress here, but I'm watching. You guys hear that series Winning Time? It's about the Lakers.
Oh, yeah,
I
I've
thought it's
watched
really
that.
good.
I'm watching it for the second time.
Oh, yeah?
The acting's awful, but I got to admit, it's pretty good.
They do a good job by not showing a lot of basketball because I'm assuming it would be brutal, so they kind of try to not really show the
Right.
basketball. The guys look good.
They do.
I think they look like the guys they're playing. But
Magic
yeah,
and Larry and
it's,
Pat Riley.
It's so.
It was better than the Clippers show on Hulu. I don't know if you saw that one.
There's a Clippers show.
There was one about the Clippers.
Really?
And, the casting was terrible. in that.
Oh no.
So if you're really bored and you like NBA, watch the Clippers thing or watch that Winning Time. It's all about the Lakers dynasty, but it's pretty good stuff. All right, so we got a lot to go to. We just want to start with the Celtics. And I say this jokingly, I hope it doesn't happen, but the Bruins should probably get eliminated tonight. They had an awful game. They lost 6-1, and I'm actually surprised they're still alive. But they look to stay alive tonight. Let's get right to the rundown because we have our first guest, Johnny Uriechio, coming up from the Chronicle. Talk a little local high school softball and baseball here on the Duncan Friday Sports Team. We start with, of course, Wyndham, the baseball team. Tough go for Coach Hags. 1-10. They'll host Killingly today at 4. Softball team is 3-6. They're home for Ellis Tech. Wyndham Tech 3-7. Baseball team, that is, they're at Parrish Hill in about 45 minutes from now. Softball team is 6-4, hosting Lyman this afternoon. E.O. Smith baseball 6-5. They're home for East Hartford on Monday. Softball team is 4-7. They host East Hartford on Monday as well. Coventry baseball 8 straight wins, 9-1 now. They host Granby at 4 today. Softball team just as good, 10-1. Under our friend Jeff LaHouse, who we had on the show last week. They're at Granby today. Lyman baseball 5-6, hosting Montville. Softball team at 7-4. They are at Wyndham Tech today. ECSU baseball 30-13 on the season, and they had a convincing 17-2 win over Western New England yesterday. UConn baseball 26-20. 26-20, that is 10-5 in the Big East. Huskies play a non-conference game against East Tennessee State today and tomorrow. And the softball team is 25-25, 15-6 in the Big East. They're at Georgetown today and tomorrow. NBA playoffs, as we mentioned last time, the Sixers knocked out the Celtics in the playoffs. J. Matt Rupar wasn't even born yet, right? 1982. When were you born?
1990. So
Okay,
no.
Nick Erlinson, when were you born?
81.
Oh, that's right. You were 1. You said that. So last time the Sixers knocked out the Celtics was 82. Tomorrow night in Boston, they'll have another chance to do it. Fingers crossed. That's, I think, a 7:30 tap tomorrow night. It was a TBD before Minnesota finished off Denver last night. So I'd imagine they probably still would have put the Celtics-Philly at night and Minnesota-Denver during the day.
Think so. I would think.
So Celtics 7:30 tomorrow night, Game 7 at the Garden. Philly tied the series last night, of course, 106-93. It wasn't even that close at some points. Knicks, and I repeat, went on an NBA record 63-11 run in the first half. I thought I was seeing things at Trolley Pub last night. I look across the bar going, no. Does that really say 73-38 at halftime? Atlanta just didn't show up, and they actually didn't want to come out for the third quarter, but they had no choice. Knicks went out to a 140-89 blowout to send the Hawks home, and it'll be the Knicks. So the Knicks await the Philly-Boston winner. Late game was the T-Wolves over the Nuggets. Denver's done for the season, 110-98. Kind of a surprise there. And tonight, Pistons look to stay alive, down 3-2 to the Magic, Game 6 in Orlando. Cavs can put away the Raptors in Toronto, up 3-2. And at 9:30, it's Game 6, Lakers at Houston, with L.A. leading 3-2 in that one. NHL playoffs, as I mentioned, Bruins in an elimination game tonight at home against Buffalo. Sabres with a 3-2 edge in that series. Baseball, we have to talk baseball. The 12-19 Red Sox. The 12-19 Red Sox return home to kick off a weekend series with the Astros, who are equally as bad. It'll be a 7:10 first pitch, 6:10 pregame on WILI. 6'6" Jake Bennett makes his major league debut for the Sox tonight. And the guy we should hear doing the pregame, I believe he might be doing the pregame tonight. It could be Christian. I think Christian's on vacation. Joe Weil will be joining us at 3:35. He does pre and post for Red Sox on the radio. Yankees open up a weekend series with the Orioles and the Bronx. Will Warren on the bump for New York. And the Mets are out west again. Get this, guys. Talk about, look, the Mets have had their problems, we all know. I never seen a schedule. They had 3 trips to the West Coast in the first, month and change. This is the Mets' 3rd trip to the West Coast, and it's May 1st. That's just kind of odd.
Yeah, that seems pretty unfair.
I'm not making excuses. This team should be better than losing 17
for sure.
They've lost 17 of their last 20. And they'll be at the Angels later on tonight.
If you're a Met fan, maybe that gives you a little bit of hope, though, that there's a 10-game win streak coming at some point.
They better do it quick.
So the Mets are worse than the Red Sox?
Yeah, that's what's keeping me going. I still watch baseball, but I always think, I could be a Mets fan right now. The 152-second Kentucky Derby is tomorrow at 6:57 Eastern. Probably on NBC, I would assume. NBC always has it. Jan and I have a couple picks for that. I know our friend Steve Smith from Fenton River Grill also has a pick.
His pick got scratched. He was just picking right to party as a Beastie Boy fan.
That's right.
But the pick is scratched.
I'll have to tell him tonight when I see him at dinner.
He doesn't even know, I'm sure.
He probably doesn't
He
know.
just he looked at the sheets. Right to party. All right.
So you're going with Dan and Bourbon? Is that how you say it?
Dan and Bourbon, yeah. I like Dan and Bourbon actually quite a bit. 20 horses, so a lot can happen. My pick for the weekend, though, is actually a horse running tonight in the Kentucky Oaks, Counting Stars. It's like an 8 o'clock race. It's a big race. It's the females. It's the female 3-year-olds.
Big One Republic fans? Counting Stars?
I don't know.
Isn't that like One Republic?
Yeah.
All right, and then mine is, I'm a big Pharrell Williams fan, so I just went with So Happy. Like the song Happy. I don't follow horse racing, so but that's the fun of the Kentucky Derby. Nobody, nobody really, unless you're a big horse enthusiast, you just throw a name in a hat and see what happens.
Even if you are, again, 20 horses, these horses are running against 8, 10 horses a lot of times. So you can be the best horse and run 7th. That's kind of what is kind of good about the race, and I'll watch it as a guy that dabbles in the horses a little bit, is you can figure out a little bit more about what will happen in the next races, the Preakness in a couple weeks, then the Belmont, by watching this one and see that horse that,
I get into all those big races, the Triple Crown.
You have to. Just like I'll watch the Masters Golf Sunday.
Exactly. Or the U.S. Open. Or well, it's not the British Open. I think it's the Open. Okay, so we're going to talk to Johnny Uriechio from the Chronicle in just a sec. While we're getting Johnny on the line, quick programming note. I will not be here next week, so it'll be the Jan and Nick show doing the Duncan Friday Sports Scene. We already got a couple guests lined up. I think we're going to do NBA playoffs. Will be hopefully we're still talking Celtics. Either way, Deion Sherman was fantastic last time, so we'll bring your NBA guy in. And then
I have a UConn guy, Kevin Tran. He played at UConn in the '80s, and he's still a big fan. And he knows. Again, he's one of those guys that just knows a lot about UConn baseball because he's into it. So he probably is a good guy to get on to talk about them for a little while.
Excellent. So we're looking forward to that. And before I forget, I know we're connected with Johnny. J. Matt Rupert, what do you got coming up on Homegrown?
Let's see. Some Patty Tuitt. Bill Naughton Jr. It's been a while since I played him.
I haven't heard from Bill.
It's been a while. And some David Foster. Some good stuff,
Very good. I just talked to Lefty a couple hours ago. So
I haven't seen him in a while, but I hope he's doing well.
Oh, he's doing well. Him and his lovely wife, Marilyn. Shout out to them. And before we thank you, Anthony, we'll get to Johnny in just a sec. Of course, the Friday Sports Scene runs on Duncan. We got some hot off the press here. New coffee chillers. Oh, this Oreo one is looking really, really good. Oreo coffee chiller. They got the caramel cream coffee chiller, the triple mocha coffee chiller. We can't forget I never heard of this, the Dunkin' Dirty Soda. This is new stuff, I guess. And then the Fruit Punch Classic Donut. Fruit Punch Classic Donut.
I tried the Oreo one the other day.
Did you?
It was very good.
The Oreo with donut?
The one you just mentioned.
Oh, the coffee chiller.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, it had to be freaking awesome. I'm not surprised. And then they got cloud lattes, marshmallow cold foam, Rocky Road cloud latte. Big thanks to our local Dunkin' stores, Route 32 South Wyndham, 1015 Main Street, 1575 West Main Street, 407 Jackson Street. Big thanks to Jerry and his crew. The Friday Sports Scene runs on Dunkin'. Okay, we got Johnny Uriechio from the Chronicle. Good afternoon, Johnny. Johnny, you.
Hey, what's up, Keith? How are you?
Good to have you back. Christian Koivisto and Nick Erlinson here. Thanks for a few minutes on the Dunkin' Friday Sports Scene as we're going to talk some, the high school softball, baseball roundup. And where shall we start, guys?
Well, I was going to ask him. We know how good Coventry is, and maybe there'll be a question about that coming. But I was going to ask you, Johnny, with the 500 type teams we got, E.O. Smith baseball, Wyndham Tech softball, both Lyman teams. Do you see one of them being able to step it up and making a little run here in the second half of the season?
Yeah, the one team I have is I've seen most, obviously, E.O. Smith. They have a great pitcher. They have a nice pitching staff. Riley Sardo is a really good pitcher. The coach is really high on him. I'm going to find the game. He struck out. I saw him versus, I think it was Connor. I just want to double check. I got that in Game Changer. Yeah, so I saw him versus Connor. He's 7 innings, 3 runs, and he struck out 15 guys.
Oh, jeez.
So his stuff is the real deal, and he just earned a win on Wednesday versus Enfield, 6 innings, 2 runs, 10 strikeouts. So he's a legit ace, and anytime he's on the mound, they can win. And I saw him versus Lewis Mills, and they kind of gave that game away and coughed away, and that's really their Achilles heel. Is they're good enough. They're good to compete with anyone. It's like, when they get the runners in scoring position, can they cash in and can they limit the mistakes? And that's the team you have to watch because they have big stretch coming up where it's like they're 6-5. They had some tough losses. Bristol Eastern 1-0, that one. So their record could be better. And they face East Catholic, Bristol Central, and South Windsor. And South Windsor was projected. I haven't checked, but in game time they were one of the best teams in the state. So they have shown flashes of being a good team, but they've also been like a little inconsistent on offense. Like yesterday, they got shut out by Manchester, but that's the one team that's played good competition that can make a run if they play at their best.
So, talk a little Coventry baseball there. We had Coach Jeff LaHouse on from the Coventry softball team last week, Johnny.
Yep.
Johnny Uriechio from the Chronicle joining us here on the Dunkin' Friday Sports Scene on WILI. So, my question regarding both Coventry teams, Johnny, I'd like to know. I'm going to put you on the spot. Johnny on the spot. I like that little feature, Johnny on the spot. Maybe we'll have Johnny on. We'll call him Johnny on the spot. All right, anyway, out of both those teams, Coventry baseball and Coventry softball, Johnny on the spot, who goes further into the postseason? Who goes further?
Oh man,
tough question, huh?
Good question. I would say baseball, just because. So one thing when he's talked to me is the North Branford. If they face North Branford and Hale Ray for softball, I'll explain why. Those teams can win 1-0 or 2-0, and the North Branford pitcher doesn't give up any runs, and the most runs they've given up is 2. Hale Ray doesn't give up any runs either. The most they've given up is 3. So, I just think that the baseball team's pitching has just been lights out. And I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but maybe I had to check multiple times. They've pitched 34 consecutive scoreless innings.
That's insane.
They've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They've had 6 shutouts in a row.
I hadn't even done that in wiffle ball when I was a kid. I mean, that's incredible.
I had to check. I was like, is this real? And I just saw him face Ellington in Class M on, was it Wednesday? And Ellington's a really solid team. And the kid, Devin DeAngelis, just had it going. They won 3-0. They scored all their runs in the first. And I mean, the game was over. And they had in Ellington at first and second, and because he walked two guys, and that was the first time they got base runners. But I had no doubt that he was going to get through it. And they just have multiple guys multiple starters, Kyle Heck, him, and Kevin Johnson. They have three aces, basically.
Horses too.
And so, so that's why I favor them, because they have the pitching. Whereas Coventry, it's just Megan. I think Daughtry, and she's a good pitcher, but she's only one. So if she struggles, she's going to have to work her way through it. Whereas he has so many options, and softball, sometimes if you face this elite pitcher like North Branford has or Hale Ray, it could come down to 1-0 or 2-0, and it's power pitcher. So I would favor the baseball team because they're going to keep cruising along, I feel like, and they're going to get a bye and they're not, same with the softball probably. Both teams are probably not going to have to play a road game until that neutral site if they do get to the semifinals.
Yeah, they're both Class S, so I think they will. And looking at baseball, I pulled it up as he was talking. They've only given up runs in 3 games. The most was 6, but the 6 was in a game they blew out a team, so they probably put in a guy to get a couple innings. So that's insane.
It's crazy. I had to make sure it was accurate. I was going through. I'm is this actually a real thing?
Kind of like the Knicks 63-11 run last night.
Yeah. It's stunning, and they have experience from last year. They brought both teams. That's what's unique. Both teams basically brought everyone back, so they have the experience, and the softball team does too. It's just I see on the baseball side, I see more I just see more of a path for them, whereas the softball team it's going to be those 1-0 and 2-0 games could go either way. Those are coin flip games.
Hey, Johnny,
Yep.
what do you feel might be the issue with the 1-10 Wyndham baseball team? Why do you think they're struggling possibly?
You want my honest opinion is that if you really want my genuine opinion, is they're not really invested in baseball. I can't cover them because they don't try hard. There's no, urgency where it's just, they've lost the game, 27-1.
I saw a couple of blowouts there, yeah.
So I can't really cover that. So this season's it's about, do you care? And you're invested, and that's the one thing I see that separates the teams is, Coventry softball and baseball are really dedicated to it, and they're just not. They're not as dedicated and committed to baseball. If you're losing a game to New London, with all due respect, New London is fine, but 27-1, that's pretty.
Yeah, I was a little shocked too.
That's almost. And they've lost to Wheeler 13-0. They lost to St. Burns 22-0.
Yeah, those are the
they
bad
just don't
ones.
they don't have any pitch.
But they're happening.
Yeah,
so
they don't have
often,
any
too.
pitching. Yeah, and you can't. That's the thing. You can't just pick up all sports, but you can't pick up, especially individual sport, and just when the season starts, and just turn the switch on. When I watch this Coventry baseball team, and these guys, they want to go out there, they want to command, and they work hard. You could tell they put the work in. And that's one thing I realized is if you're not working on these sports in the off season individually, you don't have to go crazy, but if you're not spending a couple hours or putting the time in, it's going to show on the field.
Well, also we heard the coach Jeff Lahouse said this last week. There's a lot of off-season clinics in Coventry that they're dedicated to, and it's nothing against Wyndham, but Coventry.
I guess that's really what ultimately is, Keith. Is you're absolutely 100% right on the money. Is they have the youth programs, whereas the Wyndham baseball and softball, they don't have any real. I could be. I think this is based on what I know. They don't really have any youth programs, and then you really, when you go to high school, if you're just learning the game and the basics of it, you're going to be behind all these other teams.
One more quick thing, Johnny, because we're up against it again. We love having you on, Johnny Uriechio from the Chronicle. Excellent high school baseball, softball roundup. We'll get you out on this. What are your any quick thoughts on if the Wyndham Tech baseball team could turn it around at 3-7 with our friend Billy O'Connor?
So that's a good question because I actually just saw them play East Hartford and they got killed and they lost 15-2 and they made 9 errors and he wasn't concerned. I asked him after the game if he was concerned and he said no because I guess they changed the time from 3:45 to 4:30 And so he said his guys were they're very routine. So I understand that. But then they followed up versus Cheney Tech and they lost 12-6, I think, and they kind of kicked the ball around again and made errors. They do have the potential to. So before I get to that, they have 4 errors versus Cheney Tech. They lost 13-7.
So it sounds like defensive, having defensive issues.
Right. But they face Wilcox Tech, who's actually really good. That's a very good team, and they lost 5-4. So I do believe they turned it around, but I feel like their defense has to. They got to just make the simple plays. And that first inning versus East Hartford, there was a ground ball to shortstop, and they booted it, and they would have been out of the inning. It would have been 0-0, and then it turns into 4 runs. So
I'm gonna have to text.
They have games.
I'll have to text O'Connor and say, "Come on, tell him to get the glove down."
Yeah, they have games. They have games that are coming up that are very winnable. So if they play their potential, they can get things around. But I mean, it's got to happen now because they've got to get to 8 wins.
Johnny, thanks so much. You do such a great job. I'm sorry we have to run, but we'll definitely be having you on again.
Don't worry about it. Yep.
All right.
Have a good one, guys.
You
Thanks.
too.
Good job, Johnny. Thank you.
Johnny Uriechio from the Chronicle. Excellent high school baseball, softball roundup there. More to come on the Duncan Friday Sports Scene. On the other side, we'll talk to Red Sox pre and post game host Joe Weil. And we'll talk a little, see what's up with the Red Sox. There's nothing really up. It's been a lot of down. But more to come on the second half of Duncan Friday Sports Scene here on WILI.
Hi, this is Ian Eagle, and this is the Duncan Friday Sports Scene on 14 WILI and 95.3 FM.
There he is, friend of the show, Ian Eagle. Duncan Friday Sports Scene is back here on WILI for this Friday, May the 1st. And before we connect with Joe Weil, talk a little Red Sox. I want to give a shout out to ECSU Women's Golf. Yes, you heard me correctly. At Trolley Pub last night, it was brought to my attention that ECSU inaugural women's golf team won their first tournament in program history. I got to give it up for Daria Fournier. I think it's Fournier. She won the whole tournament. So Eastern Women's Golf.
Great for them. Not my sport. Not my sport at all.
I wish I could get out there more. You're just not a fan of it?
No, I used to when I was really when I had kids, because playing 18 takes, 4 hours? So I stopped 30 years ago and never have much interest
Nick,
anymore.
you like golf?
I suck at it.
What, mini golf or real golf?
All of it. Last time I went actual golfing, it just turned into me driving balls as far as I could into the woods.
Yeah.
4! All right. With that being said, let's we got him, Anthony? Okay. Let's bring in Joe Weil from Red Sox pre- and post-game on the Red Sox Radio Network, right here on 14 WILI, 95.3 FM, longtime Red Sox affiliate, and we thank him for a few minutes. Keith C. Rice here. Joe, we got the coach, Jan Koivisto, Nick Erlinson. We thank you for a few minutes. Are you on tonight, by the way? Are you doing the pre- and post?
I sure am. 6'10" along the Charlotte Star Market WEI Red Sox Radio Network.
Yeah, love you.
I could do more sponsoring, but I'll save it till then.
You do such a great job. I may have to have you cut a liner for the Duncan Friday Sports Scene. So maybe I'll have you. Now that we have each other's number, you have to voice memo me a. This is Joe Weil, the Red Sox of the Red Sox Radio Network, and we have one for Ian Eagle. We got to get Joe Weil on there, So it's great to have you here. It's not great. The start that the Red Sox are off to. We all know that 12-19, but they get a team this weekend at Fenway and the Houston Astros, which I can't believe I'm saying this, but are equally as bad as the Sox. Joe, I ask you this. Will this be the weekend they possibly turn the corner? Can they? Well, of course they can win this series, but early impressions on this 12-19 Red Sox team, Joe Weil.
Yeah, so this is an interesting series, guys, because Houston has the worst ERA in baseball, and by a pretty good amount, too. They're the only team that's over an ERA of 6 as a team in Major League Baseball. So if the offense is going to come alive at any point, across the season, it might be catching this Astros team right now. That's 12-20. It's interesting. I looked this up. I wanted to see if the Sox had ever started a season with 19 or more losses in 31 games to start a year, and this is the 21st season in which they've started a year in their franchise history in which they've had 19 or more losses. They haven't made the playoffs in the previous 20. So obviously that's not a great sign. Whereas the Astros, they're off to this kind of funky, weird start, and they've been hit with a ton of injuries, both on the pitching and hitting side of things. But they've been able to make the playoffs twice in their franchise history with 20 or more losses in their first 32 games. So it's interesting. This is a matchup of two teams I think a lot of people thought were going to be in the postseason, and that's very much up for debate right now, considering how both these teams have started off.
This is reminding me of the 2019 season where the Sox started out on the West Coast, and they dug themselves an early hole. I guess I don't have the information in front of me. Joe, you sound like you really know your stuff. Or anybody remembers. Remember that 2019 season, the year before the pandemic? But they got off to such a horrendous start. I think, if I recall, was just as bad as 12 and 19. Does anybody remember that?
It kind of, and Rob Bradford, my who I work with at WEI, he's brought up 20. Yeah, Bradford's the best, and he's brought up 2022 as a good comp in some ways for this team because if you remember, they started off pretty horrendous offensively. The interesting thing is even though they finished with a sub 500 record that year, they did stabilize in May and June for a bit before things really went south, right. And Chris Sale only ended up making a couple starts that year. And then got hit with a line drive at one point. Trevor Story was, kind of on the IL, off the IL, for times that year. They did stabilize at one point to have a pretty good offense, for a couple months. Whereas this year, I think just the difference is you look at the guys that they have in the lineup, and there are guys in there that have had good seasons in the big leagues. Obviously, we're seeing it from Wilson Contreras, and he's been the one guy that's been everything you could have hoped for coming into the year. But Jarren Duran, even though he's had a couple seasons, he's down. But I think if you focus on the other guys, too, like Roman Anthony and Marcelo Meyer, these are a couple guys that obviously are so young. They're in their first full season in the big leagues. But they were being relied upon to really provide some offensive production. And in Roman's case, I think if there was a case to be made for this team to be a playoff team, it was him hitting at an all-star caliber level. That obviously hasn't happened. And I'd be curious to hear really what are the true reasons for that from Roman's case. But they need him to turn it around. And if they want to be in some ways comparable to that 2022 team, and again, hopefully it's a postseason berth instead of where that team ultimately ended, but they need to right the ship. And as I said before, I think this is the team, if they're going to do it against anybody, it should be against this Astros team.
Joe, so I'm going to ask you this. I got a buddy that texts me every day in April saying they got to win tonight. They got to win this series. They are only 3 games from the wild card, which it's May 1st, so that's bad to look at that.
Wow.
But there are also only 3 teams over 500. So I'm looking at coming up, not just this series, but 10 of the next 13 at home. Are you feeling like I am that now's the time to do some damage and have an 8-5, 9-4 type of run?
Yeah, I think this is the time. If it's going to be any time, to your point, the American League only has 3 teams above 500 right now. I mean, it's kind of wild, the state of the league. The Yankees, as much as we hate to admit, are the best team right now in the American League. And so, to your point, there's still an opportunity for the team to get back into it, right? Because the rest of the league, to this point, is pretty down. And I think what we're kind of coming up on is, once you get to the end of May, it's hard to say it's still early, right?
Yes.
It's hard to say it's still early to, it's too early to say that this is definitively who this team is. And so what they need to do this month is, at the very minimum, put together a winning month, I think, to just be somewhere around what could be a spot for a wild card. And, the addition of the extra wild card, it does allow you to sneak in with somewhere in the vicinity of 85 to 87 wins. That's still possible for this team. That being said, they have to improve on so many different fronts, and namely, obviously, the offense, but starting pitching, too. And this is testing their depth, that they have to go to Jake Bennett here on May 1st, but they've already been hit with injuries to Sonny Gray, and Garrett Crochet and Patrick Sandoval. And on top of that, Cutter Crawford have dealt with some setbacks trying to work their way back. It's kind of hard to believe we're at this point, but we are, and now it's okay. Can you stay afloat right now? And that's the big question surrounding this team.
With the departure of Cora and Jason Varitek and everybody, Which is a bigger blow to the team, the loss of them having Cora or Veritek in the clubhouse?
Well, I would say Cora, just because he's the head guy, right? And he has been the head guy, now since 2018, outside of 2020, obviously when he was suspended. It's a really big loss, for a lot of these players that have had him for a long time, or some of the guys when they were just obviously recently called up. He was the manager of the Boston Red Sox. I think what's interesting now, and I've been thinking a lot about this, is that this is the first time really since the championship era began from, obviously starting in 2004, where there isn't somebody in the clubhouse, either as a player or as the manager, that has been there for a previous championship team. I mean, that was kind of the hard thing about trading Devers, in part is because he was your last link to the 2018 team. And then at that point, once he was traded, it was Alex Cora. Now you don't have a link to that. And again, you really don't have a link to the other teams in the dugout, whether it's playing or coaching. Obviously, Craig Breslow, he was the guy that won a World Series in 2013 with the Red Sox. But it was one thing I thought about, with the departure of Jason Veritek, along with Alex Cora, is you're now without those links, either on the player side or, from the managerial side, coaching side. And that's the first time that's happened. It feels like there's been a bridge, from each era, even in that span from 2004 to 2018. So I would say Cora. I think maybe from a fan psyche standpoint, I think that's where the question of which one is a little bit more challenging to think about. Maybe it is the Veritek one, because he's been a part of this organization since 1997, like as a big leaguer or a part of the Red Sox at that level. So he's been with this franchise for such a long time, and he's been, a loyal soldier. He was a guy that, embodied what we wanted. When we think about what makes a good Boston Red Sox, he was the guy, this gritty guy that was really cerebral and, of course, had big hits. Was a tough player too. Obviously, when you think of his playing days, the thing you think about is the fight with Alex Rodriguez and what that meant to this franchise, and just kind of standing up for Bronson Arroyo in that moment. So I would say from the player's standpoint, I think it's Alex Cora, but I think from the fan side, that's a more interesting question to me, because, again, Jason Veritek, he'd been with this organization for such a long time, and he means so much to so many people that love this team.
Joe Weil with us from the Red Sox Radio Network on the Duncan Friday Sports Scene here on WILI, and, of course, on the WILI Radio YouTube channel. I wanted to ask, let's stay with Cora and Veritek for a second. Cora, I'll go Veritek first. They did offer Veritek a job within the organization before blowing him out, or I should say, but he said no to that, right? Do you know the position they offered him and why he said no? Do you know anything about that?
Well, I think they were. I don't know specifically what they were reassigning him to yet. That hasn't been. I don't believe I've seen that information out there yet. Okay. I just think if you're going to demote him, which is essentially what that was. Again, here's a guy that's been really loyal to the franchise and all that stuff. I can understand not taking that. I mean, I think of any of us in any of our
he's probably a Cora guy too, and he's probably he's a Cora guy.
There's that part of it too, and I think it's just it's a little. I think that was what settled wrong for a lot of people is it was a little degrading, right? Again, here's a guy that has meant a lot. I've heard others talk about more so that he was giving information that wasn't necessarily being taken maybe as seriously as it could have been. And so I about game planning and whatever, what his job entailed. And so I can understand him just hearing that news or whatever they told him and being completely heartbroken by that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just was going to say, I just feel like it makes sense to me that he would decide, okay, you know what? This organization, this year hasn't quite been what it had been in years past. And I think there's a lot of questions surrounding, the front office right now about what exactly is the plan. And I'm sure Jason Veritek probably feels that way, after the decision that was made. And, of course, he's very loyal. Yeah, he's very loyal to Alex Cora. And so if he gets let go, he's part of that staff. And they let go of him, I could understand him saying, you know what, I don't want to deal with this reassignment thing. I'm good to just, I'm good to kind of figure things out from here.
Yeah, there were a lot of talk. That's probably why it was time for Alex Cora to go. I've always been an Alex Cora guy, but there's been rumors floating around that Cora may have been too involved with politics internally with the organization, and it's and not really managing. I know I'm not saying he wasn't doing his job, but also I heard rumors that maybe Cora favored some of the older players, and you didn't see. That's why you saw Marcelo Meyer not playing every day, which I think a lot of Red Sox fans were hoping to see. If you could comment on that, and then I'd like to get into Chad Tracy. But what do you think about as far as Cora did great things for this organization. Let's not forget we've had several last place finishes too. So there's you could go either way on Alex Cora. I've always been a Cora guy, but I got to be honest. I think it was time.
I in some part of my brain agree with that. I think for any manager, there is a shelf life. Listen, Terry Francona is the greatest manager in Red Sox history. Mm-hmm. He even admitted after 2011 that his message wasn't getting across, and obviously we saw what happened that season. I think it can definitely happen, and especially when you have so many different players over the years. I think for Alex Cora, I think it's a twofold thing. I think to your point, right, there were last place finishes mixed in there. I don't know if the last year plus was his best. When you look at the totality of everything, because he brings, he was the one that was very vocal about bringing Alex Bregman in, and and with the hope of helping this team, which it did, but also you created some conflict with Rafael Devers, and that didn't get figured out. Devers ultimately decided that he didn't want to, stay around, and they ended up trading him. I think on the other side too for Cora. He did a lot of good work. I get a little frustrated when I hear people say, "Oh, it was just 2018." Well, 2021, they come off that 2020 season, which was a disaster that he wasn't a part of, and he leads them back into the playoffs. And I think if we're all being honest with ourselves, he took that 2021 team, as far as they could have went.
Absolutely.
That Astros team was better than them. And a Laz Diaz missed strike 3 call in Game 4 of that ALCS, and they probably win that game, and who knows, probably win the series. And I would say the first half of 2024 too, like what he was doing that year. Like you go back and look at that roster. Tanner Houck was your best pitcher. Jarren Duran was your best player, and they were in wild card contention until September when nobody thought that team would be good. And then last year they get back to the postseason. If Cedon lays down a bunt in Game 2, if Kyle Hudson sends Nate Eaton in Game 2, who knows? They probably win that series, and they were without Roman Anthony. So I think he's one of the best managers in baseball. And he's going to get a job next year, and he almost did, right? Like Dave Dombrowski wanted to give him a job right away.
Dombrowski didn't even wait; he was right on it.
He didn't wait a second, right? He wanted to be reunited with his guy.
And before that, I was set he was going to Philly, and sure enough, we all pick up our phones. Dombrowski's and he turned him down, but he's sitting out. Cora's going to sit out a year, right?
Yeah, it sounds like he's going to sit out the rest of the year. And just to finish my point, I think what's a little scary to think about is. You hear it from people around baseball, and they all have respect for Alex Cora and what he can do as a manager. They would say he's probably one of the top 5 to 10 best managers in the game. Do people say that about Craig Breslow? I don't think so, and that's the point of concern. I think a little bit right now for where this organization is at. So just to answer the question, just in short, I think he did a good job. I also think it's fair to say that maybe at some point here his time had come, as it does for even the best managers.
So I want to ask you a little bit. An odd trade a year or two ago was this Bennett for Perales trade to just show if Breslow knew more than Tabini, who was an ex-Red Sox guy. So what are we going to look at for Jake Bennett tonight? And is Breslow going to be proven right that he's the better starter?
Well, I have never been good at predictions, so I don't know. But I can tell you a little bit about Jake Bennett. Second-round pick, a guy that he's a really tall guy, stands at 6'6", so he's got some great extension, which is, as you guys are aware of, that's a big Craig Breslow thing, in that he shortens the length that it takes for a pitcher to get the ball to the plate, which means that fastballs can kind of jump on hitters in a certain way. They were hoping to get, I think, a little bit more velocity out of him in Worcester. Now, he ended up touching 97 in spring training, but in Worcester this year he was sitting 93. I think the average, if I don't have it right in front of me, but I think it was 93.9 for the four-seam fastball. So it wasn't quite as fast as maybe they had been trying to hope it get there. What I like though about what we saw from him in AAA was the expected slug was below 200, and he only walked 3 guys in 21 innings pitched. So he did a really nice job with the Woo Sox. So it makes sense that they called him up, obviously, when they need a starter. And part of the calculus for Craig Breslow was to deal away Perales, a guy that's probably tapped to be a reliever. You get a starter bat, you get more starter depth, and that's exactly what Jake Bennett is. As I said to you guys before, I'm shocked that we're here, that he's the guy up here in May 1st, but that's why you make a trade like that, and we'll see if it pays off, because they need him right now, because this starting rotation, now without Garrett Crochet and Sonny Gray, needs some help, and the hope is he can provide that.
And maybe that helps him knowing he's probably going to get at least 2 or 3 starts here, right? It's not a one-and-done type of thing.
Probably, yeah.
Exactly, and I think it can. You get a little taste of the big leagues. I will say you're going up against an Astros lineup that it's without Jeremy Pena right now, but it still has some pretty big bats. I mean, Yordan Alvarez just finds a way. It seems like every time he faces off against the Red Sox, he terrorizes them. We know what Jose Altuve can do, so it's not going to be easy. By a lot of metrics, they're a top 5 lineup, so it's a tough task here in the opener. Again, as I said to you guys right off the top, hopefully this is a series, though, the offense can help out the starting pitcher, because I think what's really been tough is that this is a group that when the starters don't go 6 innings, they're in massive trouble. And you'd probably see that across most teams, but it's definitely more magnified for a team like the Sox in the way they're playing right now.
A couple more minutes here with Joe Weil on the Duncan Friday Sports Scene. Of course, you can hear Joe at 6:10 tonight on WILI for Red Sox pre and post. He's got you tonight as the Sox open up a weekend series with the Houston Astros. So the Red Sox are calling everyone up, including Chad Tracy. And that's where I want to go with my next question. How, if you're in Craig Breslow's, by the way, the bullseye's on Breslow now, no doubt about it, because there were, going back to Cora for a second, there were some that say Cora was responsible for knocking Bloom out of there. Well, it looks like there were also rumors that Breslow didn't want Cora. They did get along, but now, hey, all eyes are on Craig Breslow. So, you're Joe Weil, you're Craig Breslow. How long do you give Chad Tracy, and who are you looking at for possible successors to Alex Cora?
Well, so here's what's really interesting is, you've already changed a lot of things if you're Craig Breslow, right? You've pretty much revamped the hitting coaches on the team. You've already fired the manager. What I've found really interesting is what I heard Craig Breslow talk about Chad Tracy, and he didn't fully commit to him being the interim manager the rest of the season. That to me is a little shocking, considering how much change that there already has been, in this season. Now, obviously, maybe you don't want to make that blanket statement just in case he's really not up for the job. But I would also argue, well, then why would you make him the man to take over, if you're going to fire your manager?
Plus, he knows all those kids too.
And he knows right. It's a great point. He knows a lot of the young guys too, and that was, I think, something that helps him, jump into that spot. Is, listen, he has a relationship with a lot of these guys, whether it was the guys coming up through Worcester just from a development side, or it was one of these rehab guys, because a lot of times they'll send somebody to Worcester to get some at bats or to get some time on the mound before they ultimately come up to Boston. So if I'm Craig Breslow, I think you got to stick with this, because you've already changed a lot. There's a lot of shuffling within the organization to fill out the coaching staff. I just don't know why you would make that change again. And especially if you're going to make the change to fire Alex Cora, you better be sure about who you're bringing up to be the manager of the team. And I think Chad Tracy, again, I don't think this roster is particularly well constructed, so he's going to have to deal with some challenges. I do think he's a good guy. If you're going to pick anybody, especially within this short amount of time, if you fire somebody, who you're going to bring in, I think he's a good guy to have, because, as you guys mentioned, the relationships he has with the guys in Worcester. But I think he's a baseball man, and he's been in the game for a long time. His dad was a manager in the big leagues. I think he knows a lot, and I think he's really well respected. So I have high hopes for him in Boston and in his big league future managing career.
I think Breslow went with Tracy because there's a scary resemblance between Chad Tracy.
yeah, you're right.
Have you guys seen? Put Chad Tracy and Craig Breslow next to each other. Oh my God, they could be like twins.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I didn't quite notice it right away until I saw the side by side. I'm like, wow, that really is
He said in the dugout his first game, like, he looks like Breslow. I'm like, oh my God. So anyway, Joe Weil, we respect your work. You do such a great job, and you're very knowledgeable. You know your stuff, and keep knocking it out of the park for this Red Sox pre and post. Pardon the pun there.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. Great.
Awesome, Joe. Thank you.
We'll do it again soon.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Joe. All right, Joe Weil, Red Sox Radio Network. Catch him in a couple hours from now on the Sox pregame show, 6:10 on WILI. Sox and Stros. Who would have thought 12-19 Sox against 12-20 Houston?
Well, it starts tonight. They have me for another couple weeks. Again, they're 10 of 13 home. Let's start to win some, and they got me tonight. I'll split between them and the Magic. I'll watch the Kentucky Oaks. So they got me tonight. I want to see this, this Bennett pitch. So I'm in for now.
All right, we'll see. What are you watching tonight, Nick?
I'll watch some basketball.
Okay, a lot of hoops.
Yeah, and some wrestling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
we're all rooting for the Magic tonight.
That's right. Yeah, boy, they've looked good against the Pistons. Nick is going to do a wrestling segment next week with Jan. So
I could.
Jan and Nick holding down the ship next week. I'll be in Florida, but I'll be thinking of you guys. I'm sure it'll be a great show. Dion Sherman and Jan's got. What's your UConn's got?
Kevin Trahan.
Kevin Trahan. Make sure you check out the Duncan Friday Sports Scene a week from today, every Friday from 3:05 to 4. J. Matt Rupar is not going anywhere. He's got Homegrown next. Thank you to Jan and Nick, intern Anthony, and our local Duncan stores, and of course Johnny Uriechio and Joe Weil from the Red Sox Radio Network. Enjoy your weekend, and look for us on the WILI Radio YouTube channel as well. 14 WILI Willimantic and 95.3 FM.